Want to go to Tom Murphy now of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Tom, we will talk Arkansas football. We'll talk Arkansas basketball as well, but news coming out of Auburn, Alabama, that Gus Malzahn is no longer the head coach there. Tommy and I were thinking that there wouldn't be a lot of jobs that came open after the season with the different athletic departments dealing with COVID and just the revenue and stuff. But now you have 3 jobs open. How shocked were you to see Gus Malzahn's job open up at Auburn?
Yeah, Bo, I tell you what, a lot of compelling storylines from over the weekend, including that Florida LSU game you were just talking about, many other things. But, yeah, it was shocking. When I saw the news yesterday, I was like, wow, I just did not think Auburn would pull the trigger on this. His record is essentially 8.5 wins and 4.5 losses. It almost adds up exactly like that. Now, if you do that year in and year out, people might get tired, but he would cycle up and competed in his first year. And I guess the 4 losses every year since then, it just got tiring. And I think also losing so many quarterbacks along the way, and I guess it's really hard to keep 2 premier quarterbacks when both of them think they should be playing. You know, the Joey Gatewoods and Malik Willises of the world, and there's been a lot more. And I think this is the other shoe dropping from Arkansas's run at Gus Malzahn in 2018 when Auburn signed him to the huge deal. I mean, you could just sense at the time, they've already had frustrations with Gus, and he just had a big year. They beat Georgia and Alabama in the same season. But at some point, it's going to cycle back to where they're really frustrated with him. And so 7 years and $49 million seem like way too much of incentive, or way too much to lay out there to commit to Gus Malzahn. And so now they owe him more than $21 million. $10 million of it due within, is it 60 days of right now?
30 days.
30 days, yeah.
Unbelievable, the financial commitment they have. And if they don't get Hugh Freeze, I don't know that if they even upgrade. I don't know how they upgrade. And they're trying to keep up with Alabama, and it's just really, really hard right now.
Tom, you mentioned Hugh Freeze. I wonder if he's going to be allowed back in this conference. There's a sense that he was blackballed from several other jobs, that either in offensive coordinator positions or maybe something that would come open. But if you're Auburn and you make this decision, is it fair for us to assume that they've already targeted their number one guy, or is this just a wait-and-see approach to who they were just done with Gus?
Yeah, I just do not know. I would like to think that there's been back-channel stuff. Can we get this guy? It's always through the agents and the intermediaries and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I think Hugh Freeze wanted the Arkansas job. He had a 1-year show cause from his tenure at Ole Miss, which ended, inglorious, man. It was not a good ending, especially for an upright Christian man as he presented himself. Sure, you can make mistakes. You can reform and all that. It's unquestioned that he is a brilliant offensive mind, and his wins over Alabama that essentially forced Nick Saban into following that lead and becoming a more open offense were seminal. I mean, they were big time wins, and one of them came in Tuscaloosa. So I think that's who they would target. I also think that his name has basically now been cleared to come back to the SEC, and I don't know I think that's their number one target, and I may be wrong, but he makes sense to me.
Is the purge over in this league? Are there any other coaches you see on a hot seat at this point in the SEC?
Wow, I don't think so. I mean, Mississippi State probably not real happy with what all's gone on with Leach, but they fought in some games down the stretch, like the Georgia game. So you got to give him
like Auburn time. Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think so, and I really did think there would be less turnover because of the pandemic and the financial crises that all these schools are undergoing right now.
Yeah,
but it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I was there with you. I couldn't be more wrong about that point. I didn't think there would be a lot of coaching carousel, and just I'm flat wrong about that. What does that say? Does that say more about that we misunderstood the finances of where these schools are at, or the lack of patience? I just didn't think because of basically being off on ticket sales by 75% roughly at most schools, they would be able to financially make that kind of commitment. Where did we miss the mark on misjudging the coaching carousel quantity this year?
Yeah, Tommy, I don't know. I guess it's probably a little combination of all of that stuff. But Auburn, I mean, they've got to have some deep pockets to withstand, the financial impact of this year. B, give Gus Malzahn $10 million in the next 30 days, and then face that large buyout plan of 4 years. I mean, at some point maybe they try to do a lump sum on that thing, and then commit to the next guy, because the next guy you almost have to, $5 or $6 million is probably the starting figure
minimum.
So I don't know where we're wrong, and Auburn, hopefully for themselves, clearly has a plan to move forward. But until Nick Saban goes somewhere, everyone is trying to catch up to them, and only on occasion does a team rise up like LSU last year when all the pieces fall into place that you can upset them and win the conference.
Tom Murphy with us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, let's talk a little Arkansas, Alabama. How should Arkansas fans be feeling after the result on Saturday?
Well, I think if you were a realist, you understood that the chances to win that game were slim. Now, I also think after the second drive Arkansas had, where they moved it, I think it was 66 yards, and kicked a field goal, well, hey, we found some things that worked. But, man, Alabama really clamped down in the second quarter. It was -2 total yards in the second quarter. And then, of course, by then the game was over. So I think, disappointment that they didn't move the ball a little bit more. Felipe really held on to the ball a lot. And out of those 8 sacks, there's at least 2 or 3 there that I thought maybe you sprint out of the pocket. I thought there were some open spaces straight ahead. But he held on to it. And now, I'm not saying that's the entire reason they didn't score any more than 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of things at play. Alabama's really aggressive on the corners. They come up and play you man, and they jam you, and it's tough to get by them. And then defensively, I thought they had a pretty decent plan. I mean, Mac Jones came into the game averaging more than 10 yards per pass attempt. So every time he threw the ball, they averaged 10 yards. Well, Arkansas held him a lot more lower than that because he had 29 passes for 200 and change. So they prevented Devontae Smith from burning them deep. They made him work the underneath. And Alabama was very efficient at that. They hit the tight end a bunch. They hit Mechie on some short passes and Smith on short ones, and just took what was there. And they ran the ball pretty effectively. Arkansas actually tackled fairly well in that game. It's just a punt. I think Reed Bauer's punt was supposed to be to the right, to pin him in over there on the right, but the punt went to the middle, and it looked to me like all of Arkansas's personnel was steering toward the right. So that was an open invitation for Devontae Smith to start the scoring. So, they showed fight again. Alabama right now is a superior opponent, and much as Sam pointed out that Florida and A&M and Georgia were just better teams.
Mm-hmm.
But every other game they fought had a chance to win. And even in the games they lost, there were moments that they hung in there, much like in the first quarter against Alabama. So I don't think it changes how we should view the full picture of Arkansas football. And as Sam pointed out, they got to get bigger and just get more talent in and add it to what they have. And it looks like the attitude's right in the program. And they just build to recruiting and point toward 2021.
Tom, Arkansas's regular season is now concluded. Now people are wondering, hey, are the Razorbacks going to participate in a bowl game? Any guesses to when and where the Razorbacks will be potentially playing a bowl game to conclude this season?
Yeah, I think December 20th is the go date, right after the championship
Mm-hmm.
game. So on Sunday, all that will come out. They're not going to be in one of the upper tier bowls of the SEC. So I think, much like when the pod system was instituted for the NCAA basketball, try to get teams close. I think with the pandemic, a bus ride would be very suitable. And so Memphis makes sense. I don't know if they'd take a bus to Fort Worth, but the Armed Forces Bowl makes sense. And I think it would be surprising if they played outside of Memphis, the Texas Bowl in Houston, or the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth. Those three, maybe Music City Bowl. And I just hope that, I hope we see a turning of the tide and the vaccine starts to be effective and things like that, and we start feeling safer about travel. I don't know if it's probably too soon to expect that before December 31st. But that would be my guess on where they wind up.
Yeah. One last thing on football before we touch on the Arkansas UCA basketball game from Saturday. We mentioned coaching changes with some head coaches and Gus Malzahn. Any thoughts from you? Will there be any staff changes from Sam Pittman after 1 year? It's not uncommon to see coaches, once they get settled in and figure out kind of where they are with their staff, that they want to make some moves. Do you think we'll see something probably after this early signing period that Sam's going to make some changes?
I'm not aware of anything that may be imminent. I think Sam is pretty happy with his staff, and he's mentioned that at multiple occasions. He thought that was the biggest part of what he would do in his first season, was get the type of staff he wanted in place. Now, if programs that have turnover and they have targeted Arkansas coaches, then there may be something that another team pulls from Arkansas, as opposed to Sam saying, I'm not happy with this position. I think they've got a good thing going. I mean, the odds would say that you might lose one or two. Yeah. But the feel that they have within that building, that Sam Pittman is a good coach, he's a great communicator, we're building something fun here, and the fans are behind us, that's hard to get away from. And when we talk to Brad Davis, Barry Odom, and the rest of these guys in our opportunities in the spring before COVID, they talked about working for a guy like Sam. It's somewhat of a rare event that there's this harmonious thing. Mm-hmm. Something always happening with different coaching staffs. But Sam's attitude and the way he conducts himself has been a big attraction. Yeah. But, you say all that, but there's 10 assistants. The odds favor maybe one or two. So we'll see.
Another rare event is head coaches getting off to a 6-0 start in consecutive seasons with Arkansas men's basketball, and that's exactly what Eric Musselman has done with a win over Central Arkansas, 100-75. Sluggish start, but they were led by 22 from J.D. Note off the bench. I know this was a game that most people expected a pretty decisive victory, but it started out anything but that, Tom, in the first 10 minutes of this game.
Yeah, UCA really came to play, and they built that 10-point lead, and I think it's constructive for Arkansas to have to say, okay, they've given us a great shot here. They were making 3-pointers. We've got to respond. I think we're seeing Jalen Tate mature. He played a big role. The scoring was pretty balanced between him and Note. Moody got in on the scoring as well, and Desi Sills. And they turned it around defensively, blocked some shots. So I just like the way that there's going to be versatility, and different guys rising up at different times. This is going to be a fun team to track.
Tom, we appreciate your time as always every Monday and Thursday morning. We'll wait a couple days. Won't be previewing an Arkansas football game coming up, but hopefully we'll get some tidbits and maybe have a better sense where they will announce Arkansas's bowl game on Thursday.
Maybe next Monday we'll know. So, we will know.
Yeah, we will know.
We will know.
So.
Sounds good, guys. Talk to you Thursday.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Sounds good. Yeah, we might hear some rumblings, maybe some strong rumors by Thursday that we can discuss.
Hope so.
With Tom.